What did you think of the live-action One Piece adaptation? Is it the greatest anime adaptation of all time or just another cringe attempt? Grace and I binge all 8 episodes of Season 1 and are going to dive deep into the world, characters, and story of One Piece to find out for ourselves. I'm a 90s, 2000s anime fanboy. Didn't really grow up with the big three. Kind of came before that. Dragon Ball was my show. Dragon Ball Z was my show in particular when I was growing up. And then really got into things like Evangelion, Bebop, etc., etc. So, I haven't seen One Piece, but was very cognizant of it being this iconic anime when I was going in. That's where I stand with it. What about you?
My background is that I grew up here in US, and my mom is from Japan, so she would show me a bunch of anime just to get me immersed with the culture. And I think the biggest one for me was probably Naruto, but One Piece was definitely in the realm there. And I don't want to say that I was really familiar with One Piece, but it definitely was one of my mom's favorites, and she was talking about the characters all the time. She would show me episodes here and there. I would read the manga to bed. That was like my practicing my Japanese. That's my background with One Piece. So I know the characters. I know some of the arcs. I watched some of the movies, but it was so long ago that I don't really remember. So I'm kind of going into this adaptation fresh.
So that's the context for everybody, just before we start messing things up. And I will say, it was hilarious. Grace is doing her reactions, and there were some people who definitely thought that she was like a hardcore fan going in.
I felt so bad, yeah. I should have said, I am a fan, but, not a hardcore fan. I know what I know.
It's kind of hard to strike that, especially on the internet. On the internet, there is no in-between.
Yeah, it's either you know nothing or you're a super fan, and I'm like, I know Ace, but I don't really know what happened to him.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where we're coming at it from, but we do have a background, obviously, in storytelling and things like that, and so that's the first question that I had when I was thinking about doing a review of this was how do I judge it? Do I judge it as a show on its own, or do I judge it as an adaptation, knowing that it has a big fan base, knowing that some of the decisions they made were fan service, And so I think that's going to be the kind of thing that's going to be sort of towing the line between a lot of this, because I feel like when I saw it, I gave it so much leeway because I knew it was an adaptation. Whereas I think that you, and maybe it's funny because you're comparing it to the anime.
Yeah.
Maybe we're treating it a little bit more harsh, but I would say overall, I think there was a valiant attempt to, take something that is as unique of a world as One Piece and bring it out. Mm-hmm. I think it's clear that they put a lot of effort into it. I think to its detriment at points. I know that's a weird thing to start off with, but when I look at some of the sets, I think they're amazing. And then I look at some of the sequences that happened at night, for example, in particular the scene with Luffy and Nami, that I know when I was watching it, I was like, I assume this is right out of the anime, because these actors' positions are so specific and you know what I mean?
Awkward almost.
It looked like I was watching, like a fanfic type thing of One Piece, where they were exactly trying to be like the and there was not as much nuance to it, or I don't really
human flexibility.
I guess so, but we'll sort of dig more into that. But I want to say that overall, I thought it was a really good attempt, and topped the charts. I think something like 47 countries #1, and was top 10 in 80 something countries. So I think it was a success, which I think is good for anime to be opened up in that way and to showcase that there is a fan base. But I think the reason why it's hard is because, the original was good enough that they're making an adaptation, right?
The original anime?
The original anything. We're talking about making adaptations in general, right?
Yeah.
So, what I think worked out really well was something like Arcane, which, League of Legends is a video game, but the lore and the story and whatever, they were able to make just a great story, taking the characters from the game. They didn't have to mimic it from something else that already was telling a story. And here, it's a little different than some other kinds. A video game, is usually much more open, but I mean, when you're talking about an anime, it's literally something that's close enough. The animation or whatever is close enough in as far as mediums go that I think you can maybe be a little bit more critical about it. But with that said, why don't we dive into arguably the most important thing, which would be these characters, these super famous characters that have now been brought to life. And before the show came out, I think people felt Overall, pretty optimistic about the casting. And now after watching it, have certainly mixed feelings. I am on this. I'm actually like a big fanboy of, how do you say his name, Grace? Inoi or Inaki?
Iñaki Godoy.
Iñaki. Yeah. I actually think he did an awesome job. I think he is the perfect casting for Luffy. Again, not necessarily having a huge comparison, but from everything I've heard, I bought it, but that's me.
I struggled so hard. You convinced me otherwise. You moved me a little bit towards being a fan of him, but I just couldn't stand him. I just felt like he was so cringe compared to the original.
But Luffy is cringe. That's what I come back to.
Luffy is cringe, but it felt so much like I don't believe him. Like whatever he says a line, it just feels like he's like, this is me, and I'm saying it because I'm an anime character, and I need to be dramatic. And it felt like every line felt like that. And I was like, why are you talking like that? But then I watched an interview with him where he was talking about how he was preparing for Luffy's role. And then I was like, oh, even in the interview, he naturally kind of talks that way. So then I was like, okay, maybe this is just who he is. And then I'm just judging the person. So then if that really is who he is, I moved a little bit. I was like, okay, maybe this is natural to him. If a little bit of a younger actor had played him, it would have been more accurate to Luffy, and maybe it would have been less cringy. But because it's like somebody my age almost saying, I'm gonna be the king of the pirates, it just felt like, oh.
This is where I'm like, hey, dude, does he not say that in the show 1,000 times?
He does, but he's a younger kid who's like funkier.
But again, this is where I come back to. I was like, all right, I know what these animes are like. How is this guy gonna possibly try to take this sort of cartoon character, right, and make me believe it? And so that's where I feel like I just gave him so much credit for, like, half the guy's dialogue is, I'm gonna be the king of the pirates. Like, that's literally half his...
Yeah, I know. Take a shot every time he says that.
So it's like, how many times is he gonna say this and have to... But what I think happened is, one, I came in with lower expectations, but as the show went on and as he continued to be consistent with it, I kind of started to buy it more and more. So by the time we got to like Bratier and the Arlong Park stuff, I was like very much like, okay, this guy has committed to it so hard. I think, in my opinion, it was the episode when after Zoro gets messed up by Mihawk, that when he's starting to doubt himself, where I was like, all right, now I'm starting to see some depth to this guy.
Yeah.
And I bought it. But maybe that's also, but if you look at everybody in the show, they're all kind of caricatures.
Okay, visually, I think he was an awesome match for Luffy. Like, I love his features. I think it's great. And, when I think about it, it is a really hard thing to play Luffy because he is so, I guess, he is what he is. He's goofy, one note, but I think anyone who would have done it, I probably would have been against it. There's just like that bias in me. So I think putting that bias aside, it was a decent attempt. But little things that I didn't like, though, were like, staying too true to the anime where they make him walk in with his fists closed up, to be like the anime. Like, that felt a little extra.
Yeah, but again, that's where it's like, anytime I saw a lot of those things, I was like, yeah, that's probably a shot from the anime or a scene from the anime, and they're trying to recreate it exactly because I think they would rather fans, even if they didn't like it, felt like they tried to replicate the anime. Do you know what I'm saying? Rather than going the other way and then you get yelled at for just saying, and then, if you're like, well, if you don't like it, we did exactly what you wanted us to do this time.
That's a safer route.
So, that's how I look at it. But overall, I thought Luffy was great. I thought Zoro, was also
Zoro's
great.
my favorite. And I was really, so I watched the trailer and I was already like, about all the characters except for Zoro, because Zoro is my favorite from when I was reading the manga. And so I think they did him justice. You did say, though, it is easy to nail him because he doesn't say much.
You just gotta be the quiet guy. Yeah. He's got like three lines. They're like, yo, say this monotone, and then it's funny. And he's like, all right. Yeah, black is my color, I think, or something, He's like, yeah, I like that, or whatever. And you're like, that's funny.
I did in the beginning miss Zoro smiling because I feel like that image is also in my mind, like the iconic Zoro being all moody and then he gives like a cool smile. But yeah, I didn't like that it took until the end for him to start smiling. But
it's one of those things though that you kind of got to remember
You got to build up to?
I guess so. Like you're watching, this is like 80 episodes of the anime in one season, right? So
that's true.
You're looking at like, his development was the only thing I thought happened quick. Where I'm like, okay, so you're moody, and then randomly you're just like the most loyal guy on the planet now, or it felt more random. But I think it's just because I'm like, wait, what happened? That all of a sudden it's like by the third episode he's like moody, and then in the second episode, when with Buggy, he's like chained up and he's just like, this guy believes in himself. I'm like, wait, what? Since when are you on his team now? You know what I mean? I was like, okay, all right, fine. But I just kind of went with it, and then once I did go with it. There's just some really nice moments later on of like, when he wakes up is a great moment between them. Yeah. And the fact that he's a little jealous of Sanji, we might as well jump to him next, who's my favorite outside of Luffy. I thought it would be Zoro, but Sanji is the man, dude. He's just, I don't know. I guess I felt like his sort of story and performance was the most... Not believable. Anime, I guess.
Yeah.
To put it, I believed it in the world, the cursing and the arguing with his father figure, and just like that like I think I'm the best and I just can't contend with how the world works. Like and I have like an attitude about it, but like I'm so damn talented. Like I ate it up. I thought that the Bratier stuff was the best stuff in the season by far. And I think his story and Zeph, is it Jeff? I don't know.
Zeph, yeah.
I just loved their story together. So, so he became my favorite for sure. A little later on when he's calling out his moves in French at the end, I was a little, but I was like, it's an anime. And I did laugh when he's like, at the end when they like save Nami and he's like, Nami! And she runs right past him and he's just like, damn, man. I was like, all right, you know what? You got me. I could dig it, So I thought he did a great job.
I thought that his hitting on Nami would be cringy. I was just like preparing myself for when that was going to happen. But he did it really well, really smoothly. And I think that's a huge testament to the actor. I agree with everything about Sanji. I loved him. The only thing that I'm curious about is why didn't they put the curl on his eyebrow? That's like iconic Sanji. He has like a curled eyebrow. And, they went so above and beyond for everyone else's makeup. And I was like, that seems like such an easy thing. And no one has commented on that in our video. So I'm curious.
Interesting.
Like, did no one care about that? But yeah.
I mean, it's funny. Again, as someone who didn't see the show, stuff like that is not really relevant to me. Where I'm like, that might have been more distracting. And you know what I mean? I like that the human characters at least like just looked human. And if they weren't human, then you kind of go and do your whole thing. But like, that's a whole other thing. But I mean, outside of that, you've now got Usopp and Nami that I think are some, I just character-wise, I don't necessarily want to blame performance switches. They're not the most exciting characters. I actually think the guy who played Usopp did an awesome job not making me hate him. Well. I hate those kind of characters.
Yeah. I don't like Usopp. I never liked him in the anime.
I would hate him in the anime too if he's like that.
But he did a good job of striking that, making me not like him, and yet having that annoying vibe. But like, it's not over the top.
Yeah, like he was annoying, but he was cool enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, all right,
exactly.
You know what I mean? He seemed like he had some purpose, but so I don't blame the performance. I don't like those kind of characters in general. And then Nami, I think, was the biggest disappointment for me because I felt like there was a lot of depth to her character, but
she's a great character in the show. Like it makes me really sad.
I don't know what to say about it. It just felt flat.
She just felt so moody.
Yeah, that's right. There's like no depth to it.
And then in the first part of the whole show, because it's Zoro and Nami and Luffy and it's only 3 people and both Zoro and Nami are being super moody. It's like one note. Yeah.
And here's the big difference, right? Zoro's moody, but then he's funny because of it. She's just moody, and then it doesn't really evolve too much from there.
Yeah.
And so therefore, like the whole time, you're not surprised when she betrays them or anything. Because it's, like nothing.
Oh, speak for yourself. I gasped.
Oh, really? I was like, no surprise. She's a thief.
I knew it was going to happen. It's still.
But they didn't have like a big bonding moment before then. She like tries to betray them with Buggy. Then like they do is like kind of they don't ever do what she wants and like.
Yeah, but they had a whole drinking moment together and they like.
That was Zoro and her.
Yeah, Zoro and her. Yeah.
Yeah, but not her and Luffy, which is the one that
Oh, that she betrays.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, like that's all. It was just a little too ham-fisted for me. I think they just moved a little too quick with her, and they didn't give enough range of emotion to lead up to the whole thing. Not to mention, and this is a problem with both of them, Zoro and her, their backstories, these kid actors made it so hard to watch, which is, I just feel bad. I'm like, what are you going to do?
And I don't understand why they made her so moody, because that's not the way she is in the show. Like, she has a great smile in the show, and I was like, I felt like I was missing that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
It felt the farthest from the original.
Yeah, she was just a moody character, and it's tough in a world like this because everybody's got a sad story. Sanji's story is crazy, but like, you know, and so it's just, that's all. I think it's just they missed an opportunity to bring some depth to her character, but it is what it is. I mean, you know, it was a tall task in general. I want to touch on just some of the other side characters of villains. Anyone stand out to you from the sort of other cast of characters that we were introduced to?
Buggy was definitely my favorite.
Yeah,
like,
Buggy's a standout.
I think this was a standout actor, character, and they did him so well. I love that they chopped him up really well.
Yeah, that was so cool.
I just totally believe him. He is the clown. Like, he is a really good actor.
I gotta say, like, to that point, 100%, I was like, God damn, there's gonna be a clown in this shit. Like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to watch an anime clown villain. Is that gonna happen here? And then he completely... Yeah, blew away my expectations of that.
Yeah,
I'm going to go the other way then and say that the cat villains and the butler characters, they did fulfill my horrific anime adaptation cat burglar villain like cringiness that I was just like, oh my God, guys. Did we have to go there? Did you have to give them capes?
Yeah. And the ears.
And
they had ears,
he
right?
had the most ghetto furry glove knife thing, which of course I was like, yo, you're spending all this money on CG. This guy clearly has a devil fruit power. And I just assumed it was like Wolverine powers. And you're like, not gonna spend some money. You're gonna put a fuzzy glove on him and make it look floppy and cheap. Then I Googled him from the anime. It's the same thing. I was like, in the anime, it's meant to be funny. Here it just was so cringy.
Yeah.
Even the girl, the princess character, the whole thing. Episode 3 and 4 were just the worst. They almost ruined it.
Really painful.
Thank God we go to Bratier next. I was like, I don't think I would have made it there though, if I was just an average viewer, you know?
We need that part to know how Usopp joins
Totally.
so that's so painful that you got to go through all that.
Those characters were, I think, some of the worst. Mihawk was the shit. He's the best villain.
Oh, he's awesome.
I don't even know if you call him a villain. Mihawk, Shanks, the pirates. I really liked. Like the non bad guy pirates. You know.
I think Garp.
The in betweens. Oh yeah, Grandpa was great.
Name? I personally didn't like the scenes between Garp and Kobe. Was Kobe's name?
Yeah, I forget the other.
I didn't like
name.
those scenes because it felt like it dragged on forever and ever, and it felt like the same. Every time we cut back to them, I'm like, oh, here we go again. The grandpa's just like, we're gonna get him.
Yeah.
And
the kids
Kobe's
like all
just
scared
like,
and shit.
And then the thing I didn't notice, but my mom mentioned.
Total Armin vibes, though, right?
Total Armin vibes, yeah. But the thing that I didn't notice that my mom mentioned was that Garp is supposed to be much bigger and louder. In the anime he was, and then that explains why he's so strong. But in this he was like really quiet and reserved.
I don't think so. I don't know if I agree with you there though. He totally destroys the whole room and flips stuff on its head.
Yes, but
and beats the snot out of him also.
Aside from that, his talking voice was so low, and he never really.
I bought it. I bought his character.
Well, I bought it, but it wasn't as accurate.
He's just like a hot-headed grandpa guy. The only time I didn't buy it is when he is that one flashback he has where he just randomly decides to ruin this kid's.
Oh my God! Yeah, I was like, why is he doing that?
So mean.
What happened?
What is wrong with you, my man? But again, I think that's more of a problem with the fact that they had to pace it so quickly.
Yeah.
But no, I bought Grandpa. Kobe, it's tough to make, again, character, not necessarily the acting. I'm just like, this character's just whining, and he was trying to force that scared
nervous
type of thing.
Yeah.
Not, in my opinion, not the strongest performance. And then Hip Hop Fish, man, I'm really not a big fan of Arlong too much. Like, I get it. I get what they're trying to do there.
But the first time they appeared, and when we're in Bratier, they like come out of the water and like
that's cool.
jump out like that.
That's actually the second time
I didn't like that. I was like, that felt so. It felt whack to me.
Oh really? I thought that's the only thing I thought was cool. I was like, all right, here comes these guys rolling up, and because they're fish and they can swim. I thought that was cool. Maybe like conceptually, because again, you knew the character. I was just like, that would make sense that they wouldn't really have a boat. They could just swim there because they're fish. But yeah, I thought he was just a little over the top, and not this. I like the smart villains, So I like the ones that can think. I like his grandpa for trying to be strategic and sort of respecting the game. But I just thought Arlong, I don't know, he's just a stupid villain, like, just a generic I'm bad to be bad. And I think Buggy did it better because he was allowed to be funny and he was allowed to be like not the best. He's like a terrible captain, And they didn't really, I think a big opportunity that might be missed here, they didn't show me how he was oppressed. They just said it. Like, you know what I mean? So like, I just never felt that. He's like, we're the oppressed fish doing all the work. I'm like, I don't know. I don't see what you're talking about here. You know what I mean? True. And so it's just like, it just ended up being a little cringy. And so when you take him and combine it with Nami, I feel like it really, something that you could tell they were trying to make really cool just fell flat. But yeah, I think the adults, all the older characters, Zeph, Garp, like the older group, I thought did a great job. But maybe it's just the thing where it's like, hey, they're older actors, they're more experienced and stuff like that. But Mihawk was great too, and Shanks was great. So like, I think that overall, if there were issues that I had with it, it more stemmed from the writing and the development of the characters and like the performances, except for the few that I just mentioned. But yeah, anything else you want to say on the characters before we move into discuss this story breakdown?
I guess one thing that my mom pointed out that I didn't even notice was the bartender. I actually don't remember her name. The bartender who is in figure? Luffy's flashback. Yeah, Luffy's mother figure is apparently a really important character down the line. And my mom was very upset with her performance. And I'm curious what other people thought, because I don't know what she turns out to be, but apparently she's really important. And she seemed, according to my mom, she seemed a little uninterested in Luffy. Like, she's much more caring and loving in the anime. So I wonder.
Here's the thing though, this is one of those interesting storytelling choices you have to make, where I wonder if they were thinking about it and they were like, well, here's the thing, we don't know if we're getting a season 2 or anything like that. And so it might raise too many questions. Like, I didn't even question her. I was like, oh, she's a background.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
But maybe that was the point. Do you see what I'm saying? Because they're like, hey, if all of a sudden she's like really being like a mother figure to him, you might have more questions about it, And it's not what this season is about. And then if we get a second season, if her time comes, then we'll go ahead and we'll start to add more flashbacks or whatever. But I always think stuff like that is interesting, as in how many Easter eggs, how many future things can you allude to, but also just make it hold up on its own. So to me, again, from like a generic viewer now, as we can talk about story, it just felt like a very fast-paced introduction to the world. It really felt like this was all just exposition. It's like, hey, let's just get all the main characters on the boat, and then the story really starts afterwards. Nothing really had massive impact to me. And I think there were things where they tried, but like, because of the speed of it, it's like, Zoro almost dies. It's an action sequence, so it's cool enough. And obviously the guy intends for him to live, so which is kind of unfortunate. I never really thought he was going to die. And then they have to do the Nami thing in like 2 episodes, and it's just, again, I don't feel that. She like when she stabbed her arm, I was like, what the girl?
Yeah, me too. Yeah. No, I teared up in a few moments, but it was only because it reminded me of the original. Yeah. And otherwise, I don't know if I'd be there. Yeah, like when Shanks gives his hat to Luffy,
I love that scene,
I teared up. I love that moment.
Yeah, but they spent like 2-3 episodes really developing the whole first 2. Were really all about how he got there. And then, that one's easy because it's like a mentor and a kid, and he's just trying to keep the kid safe. And then when he loses his arm, it's badass. Like, I bought that whole, what, to that point, I bought the whole backstory. Like episode 1 and 2 here, I wrote down, I thought Buggy was great. I thought that was a lot of fun. I thought that they introed the world pretty good. I'm a big fan, actually, of how they just didn't do any exposition. They're like, here's the world. It's a world of pirates.
I like that too.
And they're going after the One Piece. I was like, all right. And then I'm like, oh, there's like, their phones are slugs. And I was like, all right, sounds good.
Okay, wait, the phones are slugs thing reminds me, though, I was actually shocked about it, and I had forgotten that that's a thing, but then afterwards I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. And I guess one big thing that was lost in the remake in English is the wordplay, that when they created the show, like this in Japanese, like snail is dendenmushi. Denwa is phone, and so, you know, dendenmushi, denwa, and so that's why they made snails phones. Because I have like a similar beginning of the word. And things like usoppu too. Uso means lie. And in the anime, he has a big nose. I'm glad they didn't give him a big nose, or else it would be like really distracting. And then things like, I remember when we were in the Butler arc and the sheep person comes down the stairs, I was like, oh no. We have sheep now, we're going there. Like, I know that they exist, but like when it's in the real world, it's a little whack. And I can imagine watching it as not a fan being like, why is there a sheep? But then in Japanese, like butler is hitsuji, which also means sheep. And then that's why they made it a sheep. And then like Mary had a little lamb. It's a sheep, and then that's why when he dies, in his honor, they're like, let's name the boat Going Mary, because Mary had a little lamb, because Shituji, butler. There's this whole wordplay. You miss it all in English.
Oh my god. So, you know, it's so funny. That went way over my head.
I think it's like fun.
Dude, again, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't disagree with that, but I think when you're, again, I'm glad they didn't try to explain that at all. Because
thank God, no. Yeah.
It doesn't really,
it's not worth it.
It's not worth my
explaining.
attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like stuff for you to dive into, but
it just, as a viewer, I could see how it seems so random. You're like, oh, a snail, like, oh, a sheep. And I guess like you were just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah,
but like when you're reading
it
in the manga, it's like, oh, that's fun. You know, you can have a little moment about it. It's not random, weird.
Yeah, I guess. But you know what? It's just funny because it's not like related to the Pirates or the Ocean either.
Yeah. It's just that's not having fun, I think. Like...
which to talk about the Syrup Village arc, that's 3 and 4. It was easily the lowest point in the show. I think a lot of people agree with that at this point. Yes. Very cringy. I think it's mainly due to, again, the poor villains. Us having to... They spent 2 episodes on Usopp's character. He's the worst character in the crew, man.
I know. I would have much rather that on Sanji.
100%, which they kind of, you know, like, I feel that they should have just tried to knock that out in 1 episode.
Or on Zoro.
That's the thing, is they put Zoro's backstory in there too. That's how they tried, you know, they were doing what they had to do. Like when I broke it down, episode 1 and 2 covers Luffy, 3 and 4 is Usopp, Zoro's backstory, 5 and 6 is Sanji.
And then 7 and 8 is Nami. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so I understand how they were just trying, you know, how they were trying to pace it as best as they could. But you're kind of doing Usopp and Zoro-ish together to lead into Bratier. I think valiant effort in structuring it all out, but the real issue is like Zoro's backstory in anime, I know it can be good.
It was so good. Yeah, it got me.
Yeah, dude, because children in anime are perfect actors.
Yes.
You know, they're just perfect. You just can't, Children in real life cannot deliver lines. It's adults delivering kids' lines in an anime, right? Just nuancing it perfectly. No kid is, you know what I'm saying, is that good. Yeah. And so you got these super cringy, like, young teens and, like, this zealous girl. And I was like, all right, I get the storyline. It's kind of cool storyline, but the performances are killing me. And then I also got to say, like, what? Randomly she dies? Did it just, like literally just like, oh, she died. I'm like, what? She didn't, like, die in a fight. She didn't have a disease we didn't know about.
That's so true. I forgot what happened.
He's posed under a sunset and like on the, you know, just wait, like from his back, perfectly frozen. And then his like teacher guy comes up to him and just like puts his hand on his shoulder and he's like, where's the girl? And teacher's like, she got into an accident. that's the scene. She got into an accident. She ain't coming.
That's it. Yeah.
That was just disappointing where I know it was good in the anime. So again, I kind of give it the benefit of the doubt and was just like, cool backstory. I'm just gonna let that whole thing slide.
It was a weird experience for me because I remember Zoro's backstory being so impactful to me and being like, this is why he's so loyal to the cause and I love him for that. But I didn't remember exactly what happened. I just remember the fact that I liked the backstory. And then seeing this, I was like, was this it? Is this what got me? And so I felt a little betrayed. I was like,
yeah, but you know they do shit like that good in an anime. They do that stuff good.
Yeah.
They always get the flashbacks. That's like the big thing. But it's so hard to do that in live action. Yeah. You know, and I'm actually glad they didn't spend that much time on Usopp's backstory. It's like, oh, poor little kid. His mama died. He's a liar. It's like 2 scenes. It's like, thank God. I don't know what you could have possibly done.
Yeah.
That would have made this at all interesting. But then you get to Bratier, which is probably easily the best.
Yeah.
The best part of the whole show.
Yeah.
You meet some of the most interesting characters. You have one of the best action sequences, which since then we've actually done a video where we kind of compare it to the anime scene. They did a great job of executing that well.
And then I think that at that point, it's when the whole crew is together. And that's what I love and remember about One Piece from my experience. And so getting that crew dynamic and getting, you know, Luffy and Usopp being goofy together, Sanji hitting on Nami, Zoro just being back there, and then, well, who is it? Oh, Zoro and Sanji starting to fight each other, like, you know, like quip. It's so, that's One Piece to me, and so that's when I felt like the show finally was getting good.
Yeah, I would say that the ensemble scenes are great, but also just like Sanji's backstory is just badass.
I didn't know about that one too. Yeah, that got me.
But when this kid cuts open the bag and there's no food in it, I was shocked. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I did not see this coming.
At first we were like, oh, he didn't eat the food.
I thought it was food in there.
Yeah, we were like, oh, he saved the food, and then it's like, oh.
Yeah, then I'm like, oh, you just been brolic out there, and then I was like, no, that's how he loses his leg. This is so dope. Yeah, like I bought it, and also the kid actually did it again hard to do. Decent job.
I think that kid actor was the best kid actor of all of them.
All of that ended up coming together. Really, just like Sanji and Zeph's story, I think really sold it. And then I want to give a nod to the fact that finally we had some actual bad things happen, consequences. There were consequences for their actions, whereas everything else just felt like they couldn't really lose. But Luffy feeling loss and possible regret and doubt, I thought was so needed and so important, you know, and I think was like huge for the show in general. So like, yeah, I think those were definitely standout episodes for me. And then from there, of course, we get into the whole Arlong Park stuff, which I feel like this is where they just, I don't know if this is the right word, either tried too hard or it just was more that, then it went back to like more anime, cartoony stuff. Arlong Park, really? It's called Arlong Park. And then there's like the villagers. It's like the fish people and the villagers. And it's just like this very on the nose allegory, you know? And so, yeah, it's tough for me.
But I did got when Luffy was fighting Arlong in the building.
I agree with you. The high point are I think the action sequences were done really well in the latter half of the show, including in there.
And then what really got me was the fighting scene, and then when the building crumpled on top of him. And I was like, I knew that Luffy was going to be okay, but when he came out triumphant and then seeing the whole crew's reaction, that got me. I was like, this is what it's about. I love it. So that part of the Arlong was my favorite part.
I also want to give respect because, you know, anime fight scenes are always so tough. You know, you look at a show like Demon Slayer and you're like, how do you one-up yourself? So like the 4th season just ended, the Swordsmith Village arc. I really thought the Entertainment District arc was better. Mad people before this came out was hyping this up. And then the reality is you need things more than just the fighting to come around it, because at the end of the day, it's the same thing. They almost die and then they don't.
Yeah.
They pull out a new special move or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so what I actually really liked about the Arlong fight and the Mihawk fight was like, first of all, this dude gets his ass beat in the Mihawk fight, which was great.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, oh, because up until then, you thought he was the best.
Yeah.
And now you're like, whoa, there's a gap.
Yeah.
Right? And I like that. And then what I really liked is that Luffy was just like, I'm not as strong as you, hip-hop fish man. You are way more strong than me, but I can come up with another way to win.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily by just beating you in strength. And I bought that. And I was like, yes, if you destroy the maps and all of that, then that makes sense to me. and is an acceptable way to claim victory here. You know what I mean? I totally buy that. So I thought that was good. What kills me though, and I'm not a big plot hole guy, but I just gotta say this, you know, Nami has a photographic memory. She can draw any map in the world. Once she sees the Grand Line map, isn't that all she needed to just like draw another one? That's her whole thing is map drawing, and then they go through all of this whole thing, and she could have just drawn a second map and avoided all this pain and bloodshed and stuff like that. Is I'm like, I don't know.
What is the answer to that?
I don't know, but I definitely would have tried a little harder, like to just do something. Like maybe I don't know, man. Maybe they never see. The easy answer is they never see the map for whatever reason. They can't figure out how to open it, and like Arlong's strong enough to open it. There you go. Some shit like that where she just doesn't see the map until she's like there, but it's like kind of too late. And then it would have been cool if the map gets destroyed in the whole thing. And then she's like,
but I got it in my brain.
That thing, that we set up. Again, if it's not adapting it from something else, you might be more open to some cool storytelling decisions like that. But instead, you get this weird, I'm running through the grove at night towards nothing. Huge problem.
And I wonder why they made it at night.
Bruh, kills me.
To hide stuff?
I don't know. I think maybe they ran out of budget. Maybe they thought it was more dramatic at night, which I don't necessarily agree with. But the biggest thing that I had a problem with was that she's running, she falls to her knees, and she cries for what?
What? Yeah, what did she see?
Yeah.
What did she see?
And I just kept thinking, what if she is running after them, only to discover that not only has she lost her money, but that her town is on fire? Then I can see her being like, I caused all this trouble. It's my fault. And then she falls to her knees, and then they all come.
I mean, theoretically, that is what she saw, and then...
What? Bro, don't lie. You only see that at the very, very, very end. That is like, you would never do that in like, it's not storytelling 101. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is like, not at all. That scene, they blocked and designed that scene as if you had seen it already from the anime. It is 100% a fan service scene. The angles, the super wide angle lenses throughout the whole show drove me bananas. I look at One Piece the anime and I'm like, oh, that's why they did that. It doesn't work nearly as well, in my opinion. It just feels forced. Like, you know, because again, it's not perfect lines and angles that you can actually draw here. And then literally just like in that scene, the way Luffy's acting, like all fucking stiff, just very stiff stuff that I'm like, this is, guys, he's been angry before in the show and it works.
In the anime, in that scene when he gives Nami the hat, he's so casual about it. She's like, you don't know her. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. You know? And it's like...
Yeah, I gotta be honest. Yo, real talk though. I don't think it's that great in the anime either. Hot take.
That is a hot take. That is... I would not say that. I would not say that. You haven't seen the anime!
Out of
context.
I saw the scene I watched all the scenes. Like, I'm saying out of context. It's also really dry in the anime, you know?
The thing is that, okay, to be fair, I haven't seen that either, but I've seen enough One Piece to the point where it's like, I could see how that would hit. And my mom said that up until then, Nami has been so happy and you have no idea what's wrong with her. Like that, you have no idea that anything is wrong with her. And so when that happens, it's like her first moment of showing vulnerability. And that's why it's so impactful. But in this series, she's just been moody the whole time.
I'm not talking about her though. I'm talking about Luffy, bro, being weird too. I mean, I agree with you. You're talking about a different thing though. Like in the anime, I saw the scene, Nami's great. I think Luffy's weird. In the show, this actress tried her hardest, but it ain't happening because I don't care that much about you and your backstory, unfortunately. You know what I mean? I will say the last shot is very anime, but I was like, okay, the boys are gonna get together and we're about to throw down.
When they're posed,
yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm down with that. But it was so abundantly clear that they were doing something from the show that it kind of ruined it a little bit. Whereas if you took some more liberties, like for example, like I had suggested, she's in her town as it's burning down around her, and then Luffy comes up to her, you know, and doesn't like scream at the top of his lungs, of course I will, to nobody for no reason. Literally, if he just looked at her and he just goes, of course I will. And then he just walks to the boys and he's like, let's go. It's dope.
Yeah.
But then you're like, why are you, to who and why?
I was saying that I thought you were a fan of the screaming. I hated the, of course I will. But you were like, I like that. My man is getting pumped up. That's what you said. What changed?
I like him pumping himself up. I don't like it's clearly like BS anime stuff. What you didn't like was that he said it more than one time. I don't have a problem with him saying it more than one time because that's natural too. You know, like I repeat stuff to myself too when I'm pumping myself up. But I don't. But nobody does this as a village is burning down in front of you. Like for what? It's the most unmotivated thing ever, right? Again, I'm watching it. I'm like, that shot's 100% from the anime. I look at it afterwards. Of course it is. And so that's the question that we kind of come back to. Probably the perfect place to bring it all together. Now having looked through a world character story. And what I want to ask you, because again, I think a lot of this has been having a conversation about, do we look at these things as standalone works or do we look at it as an adaptation of something? What is your opinion on it?
As an adaptation, I mean, I came in with super low expectations. I didn't think that it would compare to the anime, and I still don't think it's like fair to compare it one-on-one, especially because it's not even in Japanese, it's in English. So that alone is like also a different factor. But I do think that they did the characters justice. That I mean, overall, the characters are great. The world was pretty, like, very accurate. So I think I had my issues, I had my cringe moments, but I think it was a great effort, and I think it was a pretty decent adaptation. Yeah,
it's funny. I mean, I think as a show for me, it's mid. I do think that they did a great job really trying to build this world out. Lots of water, oceans, boats, the ship fighting scenes. I think we even forgot in the beginning when they fight, like, even Elvira, I think her name is, Alvida.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in the beginning, like, I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, I buy it enough. And I think those things are hard to do. Obviously, anything on water is going to be really hard to film. I wanted to ask you this, though, because there were some times where some of the sets I was like, you know, are we in a Disneyland theme park right now?
Yes. When we watched the Arlong Park.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like the pools of water and then the pavement.
With the rocks in them, like.
Totally felt the fake rocks. Yes. It felt like amusement park. Yeah.
Bratier, I believed. I thought there was a big issue with like the town set and then the Tangerine Garden set.
It did feel disconnected.
Yes, and they definitely weren't near each other.
Yeah, it did not feel.
Yeah, and they always had her like running out of one shot and then she's like magically in a green orange place. I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah,
this
I was a little
town
confused.
is all brown and destroyed, and it literally looks like she walks 25 feet into the most beautiful garden area ever. It was so, I was just like, So, you know, I do think that they had some things, but I would actually say up until then, I bought it for the most part. I bought the shipyard, which I thought was, if you think about how articulate the shipyard had to be. I bought the shipyard, I bought the mansion, I bought the fort. You know, I bought a lot of that stuff. I really didn't buy Arlong Park, though. So, it is what it is, guys. You know, you take a swing, you hit sometimes, you miss sometimes, but... You know, as an adaptation, it's one of those things. I'm on the side, by the way, I want to be very clear about this so y'all can come at me. I'm on the side that, like, the third Harry Potter movie is the best one. That's the one that breaks from the lore the most, you know, as an example. I'm on the side that if you're going to adapt something, you got to be clear up front with what you're doing. So what I will say is that when they were going to make the show, they were like, we are going to be faithful to the anime as much as we can. And that comes with stuff that is cringy in anime too. So I don't blame them or anybody when I'm like, this is the cringy stuff in shonen animes also. Like, imagine if they try to do they do a Demon Slayer adaptation. You're telling me it's going to work to have the main character cry that much?
Oh my God.
And like hug and kiss his sister.
So true.
And like just consistently repeat that. You think that's going to actually work? Like, you kind of got to...
Yeah, don't want that.
You know, do you really... You know what I'm saying? So...
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. I think there are a few things that can be done well. I think Death Note live action could be done potentially well someday, but I think you'd have to make it not high school kids. I think you just have to age it up is one example. Like, imagine if they did Tokyo Revengers live action. It would never work to see a bunch of 13-year-old kids. That's just the thing. There's more suspension of disbelief with anime than there is with live action. And I think people kind of got to understand that. So I would love if they did something like take the world and the essence of our show and like take it from there, because I think the problem with something like even a Bebop, which I was really excited for, I wasn't actually really excited because again, when you're taking the worlds that are so unique like that and trying to turn them into live action, like the moment I saw the characters, I was like, yeah, now you're like a sci-fi TV show. You know what I mean? And the only, you know, and you're not going to be as good as Battlestar Galactica, you know, like, and all their sets were inside of one ship. So like you could buy it over time, you know, but when you look at Bebop, the outfits, I was like, okay, they're just going to go for it with the weird outfits and the weird sets. And I think that's what's tough. So they're picking these high concept animes to adapt. I wonder if they did take something like Tokyo Revengers, age it up, you know what I mean? And do like a good gang drama. I bet it would actually be half decent. Maybe you'd have to take out the isekai part. But the problem is the fandom. They won't let that happen. They're just going to complain and fight. And so that's where it's tough. At that point, what do? There's no pleasing, right? So it's an interesting thing. We'll see what happens. If based on the response so far, likely to be a season 2, you know, and if that comes, you best be sure we'll react and we'll continue to do reviews of this stuff. So with that said, let's wrap this bad boy up. Any last things you want to mention about your experience watching it or doing this review?
I definitely learned that there's no pleasing everybody. I was not that pleased with it in moments. I was like half pleased, half not pleased with this whole adaptation. And people in the comments, some agreed, some disagreed. And then, you know, it was a learning experience that, yeah, this stuff is divisive.
Totally. I mean, it's an iconic and very passionate fan base. This thing is going on 20 plus years. Kind of incredible in that respect. And so actually one thing we didn't mention, which is just like, yo, people grew up with it from the ages like 5 or 10 until now, 20 or 30 years old, right? So I can totally see how there's just a lot of that weight. And some people are definitely just happy to see it on screen in a new way, right? And the nostalgia factor's got to be there. So, you know, I'll give credit to that and how hard this was as a task for the filmmakers and creators involved. I really have a lot of respect for them. With that said, let's wrap this bad boy up. Let us know what you thought about this in the comments. We're really curious to see what the general community's feedback has been on the show, and we'll catch you on the next one.